Hey, what's up YouTubers? Lee John Blackmore here at Super Easy Guitar. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. I've had loads of emails from you guys asking me, how do we improve bar chords? What steps do we have to take? How long does it take? All these different questions on what to do. So what I've done for you in this video, I've set up a list of about 15 points on what to do, hand placement, seat in position, and lots of other things you can do to help you improve your bar chords. So if you can't do them by the end of this lesson, then you're definitely doing something wrong. And if that still isn't enough, I've added some bonus material at the end of the video, extra things you can do that might help you improve in different ways. For example, changing the strings on your guitar. So if you were looking for some examples of some lessons I've already done, I've given you a few song examples at the end just to help you get going. Without further ado, let's zoom in and get straight into it. Number one, start with a power chord. So instead of doing a B minor, for example, you could just take those first two notes and you could do a B power chord. So I'd suggest taking your hand away and going back, first finger on the root, third finger on the fifth, and just playing the two strings. Now when you start to get confident with that, put that pinky underneath the third string, so you've got a 3-finger power chord. Okay, when you get more comfortable with that, when you get more confident by moving it around, you see naturally this finger, the first finger, will fall into position. So eventually what you want to lead up towards is straightening this first finger and getting that power chord. But if you can't get it for the beginning, just start by using the power chords. Number two, so a half chord. Now what do I mean by a half chord? So for example, imagine we wanted to play a B minor chord, okay? But we're struggling with this first finger and it kind of sounds like this, because we don't quite have the strength yet. So what I'd suggest to do would be play a normal A minor chord, but what you're going to do, you're going to swap the fingers around and you're going to slide that chord up, and so your first finger lands in the second fret, which is where the B would be. So instead of playing all of the strings and flattening this finger down, all you're going to do is put your first finger on that root note, which is the second fret on the A string, and the other chord stays the same. So it's kind of like a curled chord, right? Except you don't want to play the top E that I just played. Otherwise, it doesn't sound right, okay? Just play the strings you've got your fingers on. So that's kind of leading your way into being able to do a bar. Number three. So positioning yourself correctly with the guitar is very important, obviously. You don't want to have the guitar down like this. If you're trying to do a bar chord, it sounds obvious, but I see so many people doing it, because if you can feel you can do chords like that, that's fine. But when it comes to doing the bar, the whole hand has to change. So make sure you're positioned correctly. This is sat under your leg comfortably, or if you use the other leg, that also works as well, okay? In fact, that works really nicely. So posture and positioning is super important. Using the side of your finger to bar and not the flat of your finger. Okay, well, it's not actually strictly the side, it's kind of somewhere in between. I don't know exactly where, but if we're going to play a bar down on the 5th fret, you might be tempted, just if you wanted to, just do it without a chord, you'd be tempted to use the flat of your finger. And of course that would work, but when you put the other fingers on, it doesn't work as well, what you'll find. So when you start angling the finger over so it's more to the side, the pressure is on the side of the finger, that's when you'll get everything ringing out, okay? So I don't know if you can see the lines in my finger there. It's not on the flat of my finger, it's not directly on the side, it's kind of in between. Now it's going to be different for everyone because we've all got slightly different finger sizes, etc. Okay, but make sure you give that a go. So you'll never get the bar chord to ring out correctly if you're too far away from the fret. So really you want to be really close to that fret, just not on top of it, but just kind of behind it here, okay? And then forming your chord. And if I just move it very slightly, it makes a huge difference. Now that's 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters. So the difference is massive. You can hear those top strings no longer ring out. I bring it back. Okay, makes a huge difference. So make sure you play close to that fret. Why not try just getting one finger to ring out before you think about adding the chord shapes? No, it doesn't sound amazing, but by just adding, if you're on the 5th fret and your root is on the low E string, you could just add the 3rd finger and you have a chord. You have A minor 7. So it's just a bar, the whole thing, and you can put the 3rd finger or even the pinky if it's strong enough. Okay. Just to practice. So if you try and play bar chords down here, like F or B minor, you'll find they're really difficult because the strings hold a lot more tension in this area of the guitar. However, the further away you come from the nut, the tension actually eases up. So when you're practicing your bar chords, try and practice them around between the 3rd and the 7th fret. That'll just make things a little bit easier for you. So sometimes when I see beginners learning, especially bar chords, their elbow seems to be out here and they're trying to form a chord. It's not working out for them, okay? And then I see all this, I kind of see them pushing it out down here, and the wrist is kind of at this really weird angle, and they can't get it. So what I want you to try is just sit up straight, and when you sit up straight, your natural position, your elbow will sit in, okay? Now, if the guitar's really close, that's still going to feel awkward. So you just want to put the guitar away from you a little bit and come up from underneath like that, and your wrist is going to be a much more natural position as opposed to having the elbow out there and the shoulder going down and the wrist is always awkward. So just relax, make sure you're sat up straight and just bring the hand around like so, okay? From a resting position and going up and touching the fretboard like so, okay? And that then, takes the pressure off your wrist as well. So you can see the wrist, it's no longer like this, it's more like this, okay? Number 9, as I was saying, putting the guitar out, the angle of the guitar will also have a profound effect on how you're playing. Now, if it's angled too far away from me, that's going to be awkward. If it's angled too far in, that's also going to be awkward, okay? You just want to find that sweet position where everything's comfortable. You're sitting straight, you're comfortable with the guitar. And everything's about comfort. If it's all really awkward and a lot of tension, then you probably know you're doing something incorrect. So one of the most important things when you're trying to get your bar chords correct is make sure your thumb is in the correct position on the fretboard. Okay? So if you were trying to squeeze something together as hard as possible, your thumb will naturally land on the right place behind your finger. For example, when you're holding a guitar pick, it just naturally goes into the right position for the maximum amount of strength, okay? So what we want to do on the guitar is make sure our thumb is directly behind our finger so we've got the maximum amount of pinch. And normally that would sit around the middle of the neck, okay? Now, if you have it down here, something like this, then, you know, you're not getting any pinch. If the thumb is anywhere but behind your finger, then you're not going to get any strength. You're going to be trying to squeeze with your hand. That works on grip positions, like you see other guitarists doing, you know. But it doesn't work for bar chords, okay? So always make sure to get the maximum strength, your thumb is directly behind your bar finger. Okay, and I'm just holding down an A and you can see where my thumb sits. Okay. For more power, if we were doing, for example, an A minor chord, and you felt like you're still not getting all those strings ringing out, what you could do, because you have a finger free, you have a finger spare, you could lean it over and double it over that first finger, just to help push down, just to help with that pinch. Okay, so you could put two fingers over like that, and you know, if you're up high on the fretboard, you should be still able to form a chord. You might find it harder down here. Okay, and it's only going to work with those minor shapes off the E string. And again, we talked about earlier, just barring with one finger, try and just bring the other finger behind it for added strength. And you'll find, that's where I should be pushing down, okay? Now, it's always a good idea when you're learning anything is to just try and do things in small bite-sized pieces. So when you're picking songs, don't pick a song with about 500 bar chords in it, you know. Try and find a song that incorporates just one or two bar chords. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a few little examples. A majority of the time, you'll be coming from an open chord to a bar chord. Now, the transition between this one in particular, C to B minor, what you might find yourself doing is playing a C, barring down first, and then putting the fingers. Now, that's absolutely fine. That's actually a really good way of doing it, okay? However, if you find it's still slowing you down, try and reverse it. So when you come out of your open chord, put the chord shape down first and then the bar. So open chord, bar and fingers. Open chord, fingers and bar. It doesn't matter what chord you're coming from. So say you're coming from a D to a B minor. So then it's the D, bar down, fingers. D, fingers, bar down. Okay, so that just gets your fingers used to going in these positions. Just like when you first would have learned open chords, perhaps you would have put the fingers down individually and then you put them down all at once. So the principle is exactly the same for bar chords. Try not to over perfect what you're doing. Just because you're missing out one string on the bar chord doesn't mean it doesn't work. So going back to our previous example, going from D to B minor. Now I'm not playing the top E there, but it still sounds fine. Okay? You don't need to be doing that, okay? If you can get the first 3 or 4 notes, that's going to sound cool. And it's going to get you used to just playing the chord, playing through the chord, without having to perfect it all the time, without breaking the rhythm of the song. So it's okay to drop strings from time to time, especially when you're doing these sort of major positions off the A string. Very rarely do I play the top E string because I like to bar the fingers, so you know, alternatively, that's how it sounds. I find that too awkward to play with those fingers, so I prefer to bar, and I just sacrifice the top E. So don't over perfect, it doesn't matter. So if you find you're getting really good at that one bar chord shape, but you find it hard to do another, concentrate on the one you're good at. So if you're good at that F sharp, just move it up one fret and you'll probably find it's even easier. So just by sticking with that one bar chord shape, you can probably play an entire song. So my fingers aren't coming off the strings at all. I'm just taking the pressure off. I'm comfortable with this position. So keep in the shape as you move around the fretboard. Don't do this. Don't get it there, take your hand away and then have to reform, and then take your hand away and have to reform. That is good practice, of course. But if you keep it in that position, use the strings as tram lines to help you to the next position. So there are just a few other things that I think are worth mentioning. When I first had my guitar, which wasn't this one by the way, my very first guitar was given to me. I knew nothing about strings, but it had the oldest strings in the universe on it, and yet I was trying to learn on them. It's not until about a year or two later I realized you actually need to change the strings from time to time, and it will make things easier. So if you're suffering with old strings and they're really hard to push down on, that's only going to make life more difficult for you. So go online, find yourself a new set of strings, but the other thing to think about is the actual thickness of the strings, the gauge of the strings. Now, there are lots of different options, and some people say that if you reduce the gauge on your strings, it will sound different. Your guitar will sound different. And yes, it will sound different, but not radically, guys. And if it helps you improve your playing, then reduce the gauge strings on your guitar. Certainly I do it if I'm playing a lot and I've got an injury. I'll put a lower set of gauge strings on my acoustic for sure, and I can put up with the sound. No one ever notices live, and it's just a little bit easier on the hands. Another important thing to mention, and a lot of people don't always think about that, the action of a guitar. That's the distance between the strings and the fretboard. So if you find you've got like a huge gap towards the end of your fretboard and the string, and you can push down on it, then it might be worth looking up someone that can adjust the neck on your guitar. Sometimes cheap guitars aren't really worth adjusting. It usually costs between £50 and £100 to get it adjusted, but I would check with your local guitar shop. I'm sure they know repair people, okay? So that's another thing to consider, because if you have a high action on the guitar, it makes it really difficult to push those strings down. So it'd be worth checking with a professional before you carry out any work yourself, okay? Something that I found quite amusing is that I get sent some photographs of people have bought guitars online, and they are like 3/4 guitars because they've seen them online. They're really cheap and they've bought them, and of course the fretboard is way too small for their big hands. Now, it's very important to find the right size guitar that fits you. If you're a smaller person, you've got smaller hands, you might want to consider a thinner neck. Necks come in all different shapes and thicknesses as well. And that's why I always recommend going to a local guitar shop, and usually they're run by musicians. They're usually super friendly people, and there's no need to be intimidated. They're there to help you. They're there to help you improve and find a guitar that is perfect for you. Now, finally, controversially, I will say this, because when I was learning, I didn't always have a nice guitar growing up. So my first guitar was actually given to me, and it was very difficult to play. And after a couple of years, I begged and begged my mother to buy me an electric guitar. And yes, she did. I don't own it anymore, sadly. It died many years ago. But what I found was, by picking up the electric guitar, suddenly I could do bar chords. Now, I'm not recommending you throw away your guitar and go out and buy an electric guitar, but it's actually good to go between different guitars. So if you are lucky enough to have an electric guitar lying around, practice on that, but then make sure you come back to the acoustic, because bar chords are about building up strength in the fingers, building up strength in the tendons. So if you're finding it super frustrating, grab yourself an electric guitar. I'm sure you might find it easier to play those bar chords. So at this point, you've probably been through the list, you've started to work on a few little things, and they seem to be helping you. But here's a few do's and don'ts. Number one, have some patience, guys. These things don't happen overnight. They might not happen in a week or two, but work towards them slowly and eventually you'll get there. Tip number two, if you're practicing every day, don't spend like 4 hours just practicing this bar chord, okay? Just a little bit, pick up a song with 1 or 2 bar chords in, play some other stuff, keep the confidence levels up, keep that rhythm up. A little bit goes a long way. Tip number 3, do not force the hand into positions that are uncomfortable and will cause you pain. In the long run, this will lead to a bad technique and it'll probably cause you an injury as well. Tip number 4, don't overplay. And if you do and the hand starts to hurt, make sure you rest. If it hurts every time you pick up the guitar, you're doing something wrong, okay? If it hurts, there's something wrong. So make sure you relax, always take lots of breaks and don't force anything. And definitely don't try and push your fingers onto the frets with your other hand. That doesn't work. Finally, tip number 5, don't give up. I've heard so many people write to me and say, I used to play guitar when I was a kid, then I got to bar chords and I just couldn't do them, so I gave up and that's why I don't play guitar. Well, guys, come on. That's a terrible excuse. Every single guitar player in the world has had problems at one time or another trying to do these bar chords. We all do. It's just a natural progression as becoming a guitar player, okay? So do not give up, ever. Finally, if you've been through every single point in this video and you're still not improving, then quite frankly, you need to find yourself a local teacher. You can't learn everything from YouTube videos or tabs. Sometimes you need someone's experience one-to-one to sit in the room to show you how to physically do it. Find yourself a local teacher anyway. I'll always recommend a teacher one-to-one than learning a video or reading a book, hands down. So go and find yourself someone cool. I'm sure they'll appreciate the work and you'll have fun and meet new people. If you're not sure what songs to practice, here's a couple of examples that you can go away. I've actually done full lessons on all of these songs, so you'll have to look them up. I'll put a link below. So the first one is Down Under by Men at Work, and it's really easy. It actually starts off with a B minor chord, A major, B minor, G, A. So I've done a full lesson on that. Check out the link below. Another song I picked is Karma Police by Radiohead. Now this is mainly open chords, but towards the end of the verse, there's 1 bar chord. So it's pretty cool just to have that 1 at the end. It's really nice to practice and it only comes up from time to time. So last but not least, an absolute classic by the Eagles. B minor, F sharp, or some people play F sharp 7. All the rest of the chords are opens. So, it kind of gives your hand a rest in between, and the 2 bar chords are back to back. It's one of the first songs I learned to play bar chords with. Check it out. I'll put the link below. Enjoy. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's tips lesson. Please don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you'd like to receive my weekly updates. If you have any requests, please look me up over on Instagram. Follow me and then hit me up and I'll do my very best to resolve any of your problems or questions that you have. and I might even take a request or two, okay, as I tend to these days. If you'd like to support me over here on my channel, guys, I've set up a donation button over on my website. You can also find some merchandise on my Teespring page, and I've also done a Spotify playlist. I'll put the link down below. Check it out. There's a playlist of virtually all the songs I've done. Enjoy. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you again at the same time next week.